The Andy Pollin Show.
We got to go after this with everything we got, figuring they're going to come with everything they got.
I'll start off by saying I'm bored, I'm broke, and I'm back.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630 starts right now.
All right, we got a holiday week and kind of an odd schedule. Tony's doing a show today. He is not doing a show on Thanksgiving. I will be off on Thanksgiving as well, but since the Commanders play, we'll have a 3-hour show on Friday. So if you're rolling around between 9 and noon on Friday, doing some Black Friday shopping or schlepping around, maybe taking the kids places, we will do a recap of whatever happens on Thursday afternoon in Dallas. We get a preview of that with Dave Barnett. He's going to join me at 10:20. I also want to ask him about my theory of Jimmy Johnson going in the Ring of Honor. Finally, that's going to happen December 30th, the week before the Cowboys play here to close out the season for the Commanders. Maybe not for the Cowboys, but it'll close out the regular season. And if you missed this yesterday, in fact, Rex wasn't here, so let me run this theory by Rex. Jimmy Johnson should have been in the Ring of Honor years ago. He left the Cowboys almost 30 years ago because he and Jerry couldn't see eye to eye, especially Jerry not happy with Jimmy getting the credit and pushed him out the door, and he did win one more Super Bowl with Barry Switzer, but what could have been didn't happen because of egos getting in the way. Well, finally, out of nowhere, Jerry announces on Sunday that Jimmy is going to go in the Ring of Honor December 30th, and they announced it together as both of them were in Carolina. Kind of a surprise to see Jimmy there. He's either in the studio in Los Angeles or from his house in the Keys, but he was there with Jerry, and they announced it. Now, maybe there's some money to be made for both of them off of this. I don't know. But the timing was odd, and my theory is that Bill Belichick is in play for the Cowboys, that Jerry has already gotten permission from Bob Kraft to talk to Belichick. Belichick is friends with Jimmy Johnson, and among the things that Belichick wants from Jerry before he starts talking to him about a job is to put Jimmy in the Ring of Honor. You buying that or no?
Yeah, I could buy it.
Okay. All
yeah,
right.
I mean, I obviously wasn't around.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, but I mean, you've observed Jerry over the years.
Yeah, that's something he would like a splash like that. I could see that.
Yeah, and I could see Belichick doing that too. There's a really good. It might have been the football life of Belichick, or maybe
or
Jimmy.
the Two Bills or something like that.
No, it wasn't the Two Bills because that was all about Belichick and Parcells. But there was part of the documentary where they're riding around on Jimmy's yacht or Jimmy's fishing boat, and they both have great mutual respect for one another.
I'm sure he'd love to coach Parsons.
Yeah, that's right. So because the comparisons to LT and Belichick has said that LT is the greatest defensive player ever in the NFL. Speaking of that, by the way, and I'm going to play this in the 10 o'clock hour. Steve Young was on the Dan Patrick Show yesterday. Why ESPN got rid of him, I don't know. Maybe he doesn't yell loud enough. I have no idea. But he is so smart when it comes to breaking down quarterback play, and he does that. But he also said this. He said, it's been said that Trent Young is the greatest football player ever. Didn't say even best player in the league right now. Best player ever. And he said, I don't disagree. He says he's dominant as a pass blocker and as a run blocker, and there have been some great offensive tackles over the years. Anthony Munoz has been regarded as the best, but he says nobody is as dominant in both the pass game and the run game as Trent Williams. That's stunning. And also, yet another mark against this organization. Now, I don't blame it all on Ron Rivera for getting rid of him because the die had already been cast with Bruce Allen totally screwing up the way that they handled him. And, some of it fell on Trent, too. But he saw what a mess this organization was, so he decided that he wasn't going to come back and play until they gave him a long-term contract extension because they didn't handle his medical situation correctly. Whatever it was, it ended badly, as it does for many good players here. And to think that he is, as Young says, maybe the greatest player in the history of the NFL, wow. Wow. We'll get to that and more. But last night, and shame on me, but I just can't do it. Went to sleep at halftime thinking, okay, Chiefs, defending champs, playing at home. They never lose at home. They're up 10 points. They should be able to close out the Eagles. No. Philadelphia came back, and they won the game. And Jalen Hurts, his numbers are not gaudy. What do you have, 150 yards passing? He was 14 of 22. His quarterback rating, even below average, 64.6. He was intercepted once, didn't throw a touchdown, did the tush-push a couple of times. Patrick Mahomes wasn't that great either, 24 of 43, though there was an amazing drop, which would have won the game, by Marquez Valdez-Scantling. But his quarterback rating was 71.6. This was not a pretty game, but the Eagles, who last year in the Super Bowl were up 10 points at the half, this time down 10 points, and they come back to win. After the game, this is Jalen Hurts talking to Lisa Salters, ESPN.
It seemed like it took a while to get things going in that second half. Just what finally started working?
Man, we didn't get first downs. We were horrible. We didn't play good offensively. Our defense definitely had us strong in that game, and they did a great job of playing ball. Keep going, bro. In this league, man, you get to this time of the year, you just want to find ways to win, and that's the only thing that matters. That
deep ball to Devontae Smith is what set up the touchdown that put you ahead. Just take us through that play.
Just making the play when you need it most. Making the play when you need it most. That was a hell of a catch by him. Having late hands, and just staying with it, seeing it through, and pressing on throughout the game.
What impressed you about your defense? Just pitching a shutout in that second half.
They just played a great game. They played a great game. We're able to contain them. We didn't help them out enough, but we found a way to win. I think the beautiful thing about this is, we're winning games and we still have got to play our best ball. So there's a lot to work for, to be encouraged by for sure, but, we're far from the finished product.
We know this was not the Super Bowl, but what does coming in here and getting this win, what does it mean for this team and for you?
We've been competing hard all year. We've had very challenging games all year, and we've been battle-tested in a number of different situations and types of games. And so in this league, it's just all about finding a way to win. Whether it's ugly in the first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, how are you going to find a way in the end? And that's one thing about this team tonight. We have resilience. We persevered. Regardless of what happened early on, we found a way to win in the end, and that's what matters.
And to illustrate that, that's Jalen Hurts talking to Lisa Salters. This is stunning. Eagles became the first team to win at least 9 of their first 10 in consecutive seasons since the Colts in 05 and 06, and they did it by beating Andy Reid for the first time in 5 tries. That's Peyton Manning at the height of his game, 05 and 06 with the Colts, and they didn't really have a lot of competition in their division. Cowboys have been good. I mean, the Eagles were lucky to beat them in Philadelphia earlier this month, and as Hurts said, they just find a way to win. And remember, this is the team. This didn't happen that long ago. Ron Rivera's first season, they played the final game of the regular season in Philadelphia. It was a Sunday night, and the Eagles benched Hurts. I think they were looking to tank in that game. He had a pretty good first half against them. They benched him in the second half, and they wanted a good draft pick. I don't think at that point they realized how good Hurts could be, because they did come back with Carson Wentz the following season. I think they did, or maybe was that the year? No, they traded Wentz to the Colts, so they were moving on from him. But I don't think they were convinced that he was going to be their guy the following year. And here they are. They're not spectacular in all their games, but they won 9 of 10, and Jalen Hurts is leading the parade, where some of the other franchise quarterbacks are either hurt, like Joe Burrow, or struggling in the way that they're playing right now, not doing everything correctly. And Philadelphia is finding a way to get it done. Scott Van Pelt talking to Buck and Aikman after the game, as he always does on Monday nights, and what their take was on this Philadelphia victory.
It's not the Super Bowl, it's just the regular season, but my gosh, for a regular season game, this has got pretty much all the elements, literally and figuratively, and we have to start with that drop. Troy, can Mahomes walk the ball down there to Valdez-Scantling any better than he did?
No, and there was a number of throws like that, and that was a problem coming in. The Chiefs led the NFL coming into this game in drops, and it was prevalent throughout this game and made a huge impact. None more important than the last one that Marquez Valdez-Scantling failed to make. And One, it's amazing that the Eagles even allowed him to get past him like that.
Right.
But a golden opportunity that they weren't able to capitalize on it. But I couldn't be more impressed with the Eagles. Mahomes, first of all, just does not lose here at Arrowhead very often. But the way that first half went, and then for the defense to do what they were able to do, pitch a shutout, and bend but don't break, and then wait for the offense to make some plays. I just thought it was a great team win by Philadelphia.
Joe, throughout this season, we've talked about who are the teams that sort of separate and show what they are. On a night like this, I leave here convinced that both these teams are awfully good. Kansas City's got some drops to button up, yes. But what's Philadelphia show you as you leave here and head down the road and we work our way towards the Super Bowl and getting this win in Arrowhead?
I agree with what Jalen Hurts said to Lisa Salters after the game, that I still don't think they've put their best game together offensively. Like Troy said, the defense stiffened up, had a great second half. You have to tip your cap, but I think with Brian Johnson, first-year offensive coordinator, we asked Jalen about it. I said to him, hey, we had you week 3 at Tampa Bay. You said it was a work in progress. How's it going with the first-year play caller in the NFL? Brian Johnson, he said it's still a work in progress. I still think they're working on things, but they make enough plays to win. And as Jalen also said, I don't care how it looks. I just want wins. And this one wasn't pretty at times, but it's a win, and it's a hard-fought road win here for the Eagles.
Yeah, and Troy, just to circle back to you, to some of the conversations we had on Countdown about what does a regular season game really mean? Well, you get a chance to look at somebody that's in your weight class, and there probably aren't many that are in the Eagles and Chiefs weight class. So you leave here with a win where you didn't put your best 60 minutes of football on tape. That flight back to Philadelphia, what does this Eagles team believe about itself?
Well, I don't know if they believe anything more than what they believed coming in.
Okay.
I do feel that they knew they were a good football team. They know that they've still got areas that they've got to get better at. But yet, don't discount what I'm saying. This was a huge win on the road in a place that's not easy to win. But when you do look at your schedule, I mean, as I said before the game began, it really was more about maintaining your position as the number 1 seed in the NFC. They were able to do that. There's a lot of disappointed teams in the NFC tonight when they thought that maybe they were going to make up a game against Philadelphia. They've got a gauntlet of games. Buffalo, San Francisco, at Dallas over the next 3 weeks. If they can survive that, things look pretty good for them down the stretch. But it's a tough road for them. But this was one of those games, and they were able to come out with a win no matter what it looked like, and that's all that mattered.
Joe, I circle back to 7 as we say goodnight. You come here hoping maybe, right? A pretty decent night to do our jobs, was it not?
It was a blast. And when the schedule came out in May, you know, everybody circled it. We were thrilled to get it, and to be here and cover it was awesome. 2 teams coming off byes, 2 teams relatively healthy, 2 teams with great records, and they left it all out here tonight. So it was fun to be here and witness in this unbelievable atmosphere in Kansas City.
That's Joe Buck and Troy Aikman with Scott Van Pelt after the game. What you hear in the background is Eagles fans cheering. And what amazes me is not just that some Eagles fans found their way into the stadium. It's that they're willing to pay that kind of money to do that. I can't imagine what these tickets must have been on StubHub. This is the game of the year in the NFL. Arrowhead is one of the greatest home fields in the NFL. People show up for the games even when they're bad. And they find their way in, and they celebrate after the game. That's remarkable commitment. I saw this to an extent when the Eagles played in the Super Bowl in Jacksonville against the Patriots. I believe this was January of 2005. Jacksonville is drivable from Philadelphia. It's a schlep, but it's drivable. And I was amazed at the number of Eagle fans that just drove down there without tickets and without a hotel. And they just parked their car wherever they could. And downtown Jacksonville is not very big. There will never be a Super Bowl there again. It was so sparse that the NFL had to bring in cruise ships just to make up for the lack of hotels, just for people places to stay. And the commitment of the Eagle fans, that's incredible. You know, schlepping to Kansas City and paying the money to get in the stadium and hanging around and having a good time after the game. That's really something. Got some breaking news from the NFL. I don't think this is a surprise. It's a surprise that it took this long for it to happen. Matt Canada is out as offensive coordinator of the Pittsburgh Steelers. The defense must be awesome. They're 6-4, but they have a negative point differential on the season, 29 points, and they have been outgained in every single game. Their offense ranks 28th in points per game, 16.6, 28th in yards per game, 280, and 31st in passing yards, 170. Those are some really pedestrian numbers. Kenny Pickett is ranked 25th in the NFL in passing yards and 28th in QBR. So, it's probably one of those things where it's anybody but Canada. Somebody else, I don't know who else is going to do it on the staff, or maybe Mike Tomlin takes it over. He's a defensive guy. But, the offensive coordinator is out in Pittsburgh. Now you want to look at that and say, well, what's Ron Rivera still doing on the job? Why is Jack Del Rio still there? Well, Pittsburgh is 6-4. They're looking to be a playoff team. And maybe the difference is offensive coordinator. This has happened before. I think Baltimore may have made the Super Bowl. I'll have to check on this. But I believe that they fired their offensive coordinator during the season the last time they won the Super Bowl, which would have been 10 years ago, 11 years ago. So I think these things happen for good teams. I think what's going to happen with Washington, we'll get into this some more, especially in the next hour. I don't think they're going to make any changes for these last 6 games. Everybody wants Ron Rivera's head. The difference between what has happened in Washington and what happened with the Raiders is that the players hated the coach there. They don't hate Ron Rivera. They're still playing for him, and he said some things yesterday, which you hear coaches say at this time of year, including, "Hey, I've been there before." Well, that's not something you want to highlight on your resume, that you've been fired during a season before. Yes, you have the news.
I got an interesting nugget. So they fired Cam Cameron the day after the Kirk Cousins, the game that Robert Griffin III got hurt in.
Oh, okay, and that was 2012, and they won the Super Bowl that year. See, hey, Andy's memory, not too bad. And he was here, actually. Cam Cameron was a Norv Turner protege, played both football and basketball at Indiana. So I got that right. Yeah. So maybe the Steelers are looking for the same type of magic that happened with Baltimore those years ago. Okay, good. My memory is long-term memory, pretty good. Short-term, not so good. Coming up, we'll get to what Ron Rivera said about job security, some interesting stuff on that. And will you hear what Steve Young said about Trent Williams? Stay with us. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630. All right, we are rolling only until 11 o'clock today. Kind of unusual for Tuesday, but Tony's got a show today and tomorrow. Dave Barnett will join me at 10:20 with a preview of the Cowboys and the Commanders coming up Thursday in Dallas. And don't forget, if you remember this, when I say don't forget, I guess you're supposed to remember, right? Day after Thanksgiving from 9 to 12, I'll be here with a recap of whatever happens, no matter how bad it is, on Thursday afternoon in Dallas. So we'll recap that. And, if there is going to be a change, I'll be on top of that. If we get word Thursday morning that Ron Rivera is out, we'll be here to follow all the angles on that. But Rivera is still on the job, and I put out a tweet on Sunday as the game was winding down and it was clear that they were going to lose. I said the fact that it's a short week is going to work in Rivera's favor, because you just don't make a change on Sunday night or Monday morning when you have a game coming up on Thursday on the road. You just can't do it. The logistics don't work. And the backlash was, oh, come on, they can get rid of him. Why not? Anybody can coach this. No. I've seen this. I've said that I was doing a TV show when Norv Turner was fired in 2000 and talking to players. I did it with Mark Carrier and Irving Fryer, who were on the team, and they would bring in a player every week. And after Norv got fired, they were all sitting around talking about what a cluster F it was at the park with nobody knowing what to do. Because people have responsibilities. This was Snyder's first big act. He had said during his first year, if the team made the playoffs, that Norv Turner would be back. Well, they won the division. They won a playoff game, so Norv came back in 2000, but they were 7-6 And they'd actually lost to the Giants, kind of ironically. Lost to the Giants. They'd lost 9-7 when Norv sent out a 44-year-old Eddie Murray to kick a 49-yard field goal, which he did not make. And the Giants won the game. And even though Washington was still in the playoff hunt at 7-6, little Danny thought it would be a good idea to fire the coach, to fire up the players. And Terry Ribisky was left to take over, and it didn't work. They got blown out at Pittsburgh, and they got blown out at Dallas, and finished the season 8-8. So I don't think it makes sense in this case to fire Rivera before the end of the season. Is he gone at the end of the year? Absolutely. I mean, even if they win the next 6 somehow, I'm not sure he saves his job off of that. But it's pretty much a foregone conclusion that he's gone. And this to me was very well worded, this question from Chick Hernandez, as he does a Monday sit-down with Rivera every week. And this is a really good way to phrase this, because it does close up any gaps of a possible preseason agreement between the new owners, Josh Harris and Ron Rivera. Remember, they were not approved as owners until about a week and a half before the start of training camp. So they couldn't have any contact with Ron Rivera until the owners approved the deal. So the amount of time that they would have had if they wanted to make a coaching change would have been ridiculously short. I mean, it just would have been impossible to have a new coach in place at the start of training camp. But could there have been an agreement about this season being looked at in a different way? And I think Rivera closes that up. This is Chick Hernandez of Channel 9 yesterday with Ron Rivera.
Ownership, they're brand new. They came in, and I think they pretty much said, look, we've got to find out what we have in all aspects. Did they tell you, look, don't even worry about this year, like don't worry about job security, whatever else, just do the thing and we'll figure out after the season?
The best thing that they did, they said they're here to support the football team and try and give us every opportunity to be successful. And they've been great. Mr. Harris, all the ownership that has been around have all been great. They've been supportive of the things that we're trying to do. But make no bones about it. You know, it was said that this is about winning, and I respect that, and I got nothing but respect and admiration for the way they've handled themselves, and I really do appreciate the conversations I've had with Mr. Harris.
Boom. It was about winning. Now remember this, when Magic Johnson was introduced as part of the ownership group, he said, the only reason I came here is because they want to win. He said that was the first question that he asked Josh Harris. Do you want to win? And Harris said yes. So there was no preseason, hey, you know, I know you're in a tough spot, Ron. I know you've had to deal with all the mishigas, and I'm sure he uses that word because he's Jewish, all the mishigas that you've had to deal with for the past 3 years. So let's get through this. We'll make observations. We'll analyze what's here. We'll analyze we won't analyze you on wins and losses, but we'll analyze you on what we observe about how you handle yourself and handle the football team and how the players react, and then we'll think about next year. No, they didn't do that. They said it's about winning. There's Rivera saying that to you. It's about winning, which they have not done. So he knows, and he knows he could go anytime. You know, it's possible that he could be fired after the game on Thursday. That's there. And this is typically what you hear from coaches in this position. I remember when after the game that Norv lost, which was his last game in Washington, the 9-7 loss to the Giants, Jody Foldesy, who was then with the Washington Times, I have no idea what he's doing now, but Jody Foldesy, it might have been the first question of the news conference, he said, do you expect to be fired? And Norv said, hey, you're asking the wrong guy. And as the story goes, Norv was summoned to Snyder's office. He sat outside the office for like an hour and a half and then just went home and then was told that he was fired. Rivera is doing what coaches do in this situation, trying to block out the noise and only controlling what he can control.
I can only control what I can, and as long as things that we want to be going in the right direction seem to be doing that, that's a positive. What happens from beyond today, what happens from beyond the end of the season, that's not in my control. So everything I'm going to do is just focusing on today I mean, the now and present, that's the only thing I have. And that's what I'll do. I'm trying to get that across to the players as well. I can't focus on what I can't control. I can only control what's going on right now with this football team this day.
Okay, so that's fairly typical of what you hear. Now, I'm not sure I would have said this. Remember, it was 4 years ago, almost exactly 4 years ago, that Rivera, coaching the Panthers, lost a home game to the then Redskins. Yeah, this was Jay Gruden taking his team in there, and they won. No, it wasn't Jay Gruden. It must have been who's the coordinator that took over?
Bill Callahan.
Bill Callahan. Yeah. So Callahan, did he win? That might have been like one of the 2 or 3 games that he won that year, right? Must have been.
I think that might have been pre-Callahan.
No,
that was like week 6.
Yeah, but no, it was Thanksgiving weekend, I believe.
Was it?
Yeah, because Rivera coached 12 games, I think, in Carolina. And Gruden got fired 5 games into the season. I do remember that. He was fired after they got blown out at New England. So this is probably a Callahan win. And so I guess Tepper, David Tepper, the owner, said, "Oh God, he lost to Callahan at home. He's got to go." So when Dan Snyder on January 2nd introduced Rivera as the new coach, he wished everybody a happy Thanksgiving. And the way the PR staff was trying to spin it was, he was saying that it was a happy Thanksgiving that Rivera got fired after that game and he's available to us. No, it was Dan Snyder's awkwardness in front of the microphone, and he got nervous and he said happy Thanksgiving. So there's that. Okay, so so that's he's been there, done that, and I don't think you highlight this on your resume, but it sounds like Rivera is highlighting on the resume that he knows what it's like to be fired during a season.
I've been through this before. I understand what it takes. I understand what you have to deal with. I understand what your responsibilities are. That's the beauty of this, is I've been through it. So what I try to do is just focus in on what's important today, and that's really just preparing to get ready for Dallas.
The beauty of it? Is there beauty in the fact that you've been fired during a season before? Because it doesn't happen that often. Coaches get fired all the time after the end of the season. There's usually 6 or 7, sometimes 8 a year. That happens every season. Coaches who get fired during a season, that's rare. And usually it's a case of, oh God, the locker room has just had it with him. They can't take it anymore. Sometimes it's an impetuous owner like Dan Snyder or David Tepper. Sometimes that happens. But to say that's the beauty, I know how to do this because I've done this before, I don't think I'd be proud of that. And well, you have to look this up. I guess it's happened before, but how many coaches in the history of the NFL have been fired twice during a season? Yeah, it happens at the end of seasons all the time. Guys have 2 and 3 jobs. That's common. But twice during a season, which could happen to Rivera.
I know McDaniels is one.
McDaniels, right? That's right. And he did it both years in the second year, I think so. Yeah. Oh God, yeah. That's setting a pretty high bar. So Rivera has survived into year 4 in his second go round, and he was in year 7, I think, when he got fired. 6 or 7. He's coached 13 years. So it was 9, maybe not year 9 when he got fired in Carolina. So yeah, McDaniels twice in his second season. Not good. Steve Young, no longer with ESPN, and that's a shame because I think he is an excellent analyst. And he was on yesterday with Dan Patrick, and they were looking in specifically at the Zach Wilson situation. It's over for Zach Wilson in New York. He's been benched. He's gone to third string, and we'll probably never see him again. Will we see Aaron Rodgers? Probably not this year, but I guess he's going to come back next year. But Zach Wilson won't be his backup. He's gone or will be gone at the end of the season. But this is Young talking to Patrick about the problems he sees with Wilson in that he's too quick to get rid of the ball. In other words, we've seen Sam Howell hold it too long, but he said when you go too quickly through your progressions, that's how he put it, you wind up with the problems that Wilson has had. So this is about 3 minutes, but it's like listening to Shakespeare talk about writing. His analysis of the way to play quarterback and how it can be played well is really terrific. This was Steve Young yesterday on the Dan Patrick Show.
quarterbacking is all about adrenaline control. When everyone has adrenaline in the game because everyone's full of, the 80,000 people screaming, is that can you control your adrenaline? And you actually reduce it as things go crazy, as the play goes on, your adrenaline stays pat or goes down. And if you don't, you'll chase it with your brain goes fast, right? Everything's going fast. Your visibility goes down. It's all the same stuff. Every quarterback fights it. And guys that haven't played very much in the pros, until you can teach yourself that or can kind of go through it enough that happens, you end up in a space where you're always racing through it, and the play can't be done in a way that's productive. It's like you're ready to throw it, then you go to the next guy. He's not ready to throw it because he's supposed to be waiting for the other guy, and then you go through the whole process. Then you go to scramble, then you go down, and the coach screams at you, "What are you doing?" And you're like, "Well, I did exactly what I was told." Yeah, you did exactly what you were told, too fast, and it doesn't work. I think it's a great point.
How do you learn to throw a receiver open in the NFL when you normally don't have to do that in college?
Well, the game has changed a lot with the safety rules where you can't launch your body as a defender. So again, there's a lot more space. That used to be, I would say, in college every receiver is open, and in the pros nobody's open. So I would say that in college everybody's still open, or even more open, and the pros is they're more open than they've ever been. But anticipatory throwing is what I try to tell other quarterbacks. It's like, if you don't see that coming, you'll be too late. So then people say, well, wait, now I'm too early, now I'm too late. It's like, yeah, that's why there's only 5 guys in the world that can be like, generational talents at this, because it's to be able to, there's, processing has always been the key elements of NFL quarterback. So that processing has to be timely. It has to be, and then to deliver the football, that's why you have to have a great brain and a great arm. And together you have anticipatory throwing. That's what's fun to watch. And I after I retired, I'd be on the sidelines with you, like you described. And you saw Ben, or you watch Peyton, or you watch Tom, and it's that was the gift that they all had that everyone else chased. But just they'd have great brains. They didn't have they didn't have the arm, or they never put it all together, or they were too fast, or they're too slow. And there was just that's why I love quarterback, and that's why I love the game. It's like a concerto, right? It's like, it's got to be just perfect. It's got the pitch and the feel and the timing has got to be perfect. And when you see great players play, Dan, as you know, you stand behind them in the end zone. I used to love to stand in the goalpost and watch from behind, and you just say, "Oh my, that thing came out," and it's just like that. Nothing had by the time the ball was out of his hand, nothing had happened. And then while the ball was in the air, it all happened, and then bam. And there's something really beautiful about it.
Somebody put that to music. That was really great from Young. And then this is, you might think this is nuts, but this is a Hall of Fame quarterback who knows of what he speaks. Listen to what he says about a former Redskin player. He never played as a Washington football team player or a Commander, but was a Washington Redskin and now is still in the NFL. This is Steve Young yesterday on the Dan Patrick Show.
Trent Williams is probably, people say he's the greatest football player ever. I've heard that been said. And I can't say that that's not true at this point, because there's no one that's ever dominated a position like that. Now, Anthony Munoz, there's some great all-pro.
Larry Allen.
Out to Larry Allen. But I mean, Trent is unique. He can, on the run and the pass, can just completely dominate a game. And that's why, and quarterback, you've seen it every week. The only thing that stops quarterbacks in today's game is pressure, because people are open. There are open spaces, and then quarterbacks can go run for a free yard. So it's like a fun game to play. I mean, I've said it to you before. I'd love to play today. It'd be a lot of fun to go run around and make it happen.
With Trent Williams blocking for him. Yeah, he did say that. Trent Williams, best football player ever. I grew up thinking it was Jim Brown. The NFL Network several years ago did their countdown of the top 100. I think they made Jerry Rice number 1. I think nowadays you'd probably have to have Tom Brady. Who would have Trent Williams number 1? Trent Williams never won a Super Bowl. Remember that. I know he can't do it as a left tackle, but I guess you look at him on just football talent alone and how well he plays his position, and he's the best ever, and he was here, and they traded him away for a bag of donuts. Well, I mean, some of that was what he made happen with the way he handled medical situations. Some of it was Bruce Allen running the team and the vindictiveness that they all had. But you let a guy like that get away, and he could wind up being a key cog in the 49ers winning the Super Bowl. Yowza. Wow. I have a staggering stat. In fact, I'll throw this out now, and then I'll get a reaction from Dave Barnett when he joins me in just a couple of minutes. Steelers, if you're not aware yet, have this morning fired Matt Canada as their offensive coordinator. First time they have made an in-season coaching change since 1941. The last time the Steelers fired a head coach / coordinator midseason was when Bert Bell, who was the team's half owner, fired himself. That's stability. They've had 3 coaches since 1969, 3 head coaches. And this is the first time that they have made an in-season change at any spot, including owner, since 1941. 1941. Wow. Dave Barnett will join me next. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
We got Tony coming up at 11 o'clock. Dave Barnett is with me. Has grown up in Dallas, spent most of his life there. And for almost the first half of his life, Tom Landry was the only coach that the Dallas Cowboys had ever had. I don't know if you know this yet, Dave, but the Steelers today have fired Matt Canada, their offensive coordinator. It's the first time that the Steelers have made any in-season change since 1941 when Bert Bell was part owner of the team and fired himself. How do you like that for stability?
I like the idea of an owner firing himself.
Yeah.
That's not as owner, but as general manager. But that has been proposed and shut down for going on 30-plus years here in Dallas. So, but I was not aware of that history, but that's fascinating.
Isn't that something? I mean, we're here in Washington where coaches come and go, and I guess since Landry left, right, there have been quite a few changes with the Cowboys, right? I mean, who's the longest-serving coach since Jimmy? Did he last 5 years? Isn't that the longest one?
Wow. That is an excellent point. Well, Jason Garrett lasted 9.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
And people were accusing the Jones family of adopting Jason. They were so adamant they were not going to fire him until finally it came time. So, yeah, Jason Garrett, and then most everybody else has been, the 3 or so years that Dave Campo, and I think Chan Gailey got 3 years. So,
yeah.
Things now seem to be looking up for Mike McCarthy, so he may end up getting 4, 5, 6 years. Who knows?
Yeah, I was going to get to that, but I want to run my theory by you. Maybe you saw this on Twitter over the weekend. I don't know where this came from because to me it came out of nowhere. I don't know if this was anticipated in Dallas, but Jimmy Johnson, who's either at his home in the Florida Keys or in the studio in Los Angeles for the pregame show on Fox, was in Carolina with Jerry and the Cowboys. And they announced that Jimmy's going into the Ring of Honor. Did this catch people by surprise there?
The timing did, yeah. The fact that he's finally going in, I think it probably still comes as a surprise to many people, although Jimmy told me, I interviewed Jimmy at his compound there in the Keys for a series we did on Fox Sports, Icons of Coaching, 10 years ago. And 10 years ago, he told me that Jerry had told him he was going into the Ring of Honor. Why has it taken 10 years? Only Jerry knows. And why did he announce it before a game in Charlotte? Only Jerry knows. But it's finally happening, so, it should have happened 5 years after Jimmy Johnson left his franchise. So the fact that it finally is good. Guys are in their 80s. They finally should put stuff like this behind, and it looks like Jerry finally is.
All right. Well, here's my theory on the timing, because it would seem to me if you've waited this long, you announce it in the offseason, and you do it in the opening game of the season to kind of kick off everything, get everything going. The fact that he does this in late November to do it a month later at the last regular season game, this is my theory, because Bill Belichick's name has been thrown around. Now, maybe you're gonna dump all over this, and maybe there are people who believe there's no chance that he's going to wind up with Jerry Jones. But if he has had an opportunity to talk to Belichick, and maybe he got permission from Bob Kraft to do this, Belichick and Jimmy are friends. I think it might be possible that Jimmy gave Jerry a list of things that have to happen first in order for him to talk about taking that job, and one of them was to put Jimmy in the Ring of Honor. What do you think?
That's a really interesting theory. I have not heard that floated by anyone down here, but that makes as much sense as anything. And in trying to figure out Jerry, that's a full-time job for trained journalists down here. But sure, that makes as much sense as anything. Now, if they continue winning the way they are, it's going to be hard to get rid of Mike McCarthy. But there was a time when if Jerry had an opening when Bill Belichick was available, no doubt he would have hired Bill Belichick.
Yeah, and we've discussed this before, and you've said that anybody who coaches the team has to put up with Jerry being in their meeting room and Jerry being the GM and talking to the media, and Bill Parcells kind of had a different relationship in that way. He had more control, and you said what, because Jerry was trying to get the stadium built at the time and wasn't concentrating as much on the football team?
That was exactly it. Yeah, he needed public support from, it turned out, the taxpayers of Arlington. And it wasn't going to happen with Dave Campo turning in losing records every year. So, yeah, for that period of time, Jerry needed to relinquish the reins a little bit, enough to get Bill Parcells in here and give some credibility to the team that he had lost when Jimmy walked out after back-to-back Super Bowls. So that was a specific circumstance that hasn't presented itself again. But that was absolutely the only time Jerry ever conceded any control of the football operation was when he needed Bill Parcells' credibility to get the stadium voted in. And by the way, it wasn't just Jerry sitting on meetings; it's any member of his family.
Oh, really? The whole mishpucha.
Oh yeah, if they want to, yeah, they're right there.
Yeah. Okay. Well, now here's a thought. If in fact Jerry wants to hoist a trophy again, I know he wants to do it with Jerry being the GM, but I think, what'd you say, he's 81, right? 81 years old now.
81.
Is he maybe conceding the idea that he can do it, and maybe he can hire the one who has the most Lombardis ever, and maybe he can get him one last one? I don't know. What do you think?
Again, I can't dismiss any of your theories out of hand.
Okay. Right. Because it's speculation. It's not based on fact. Absolutely.
Anything is possible if it makes sense to Jerry that day. Anything is possible.
All right, let's get to the Cowboys. The Cowboys who host the reeling Washington Commanders with the hot seat for Ron Rivera. The only question is, will he be fired at the end of the season, or could it actually happen on the real Black Friday? Who knows? But I think he's going to finish the year. Now, for the Cowboys, as you mentioned, they're playing better now. But you wonder what the bar is, because Philadelphia, especially with what they did last night, they're clearly the best team in the division. And the Cowboys, who blew that game in Philadelphia earlier this month in the cowboyest of ways, they are probably not going to win the division. And if it comes down to some matchup with Philadelphia or maybe Detroit, what is the bar for McCarthy? How far do you think he has to go to keep his job?
Well, if he gets 2 rounds into the playoffs, he will be the first to do so in 28 years.
Okay.
So winning one playoff game, that would be a huge accomplishment for him. But in terms of being different from all the coaches between Barry Switzer and now, he would have to get them to the NFC Championship game, which they have not had a sniff of since 1995. So that's it. And he knew that when he was hired. He knew that's what got Jason Garrett at long last the boot. He would occasionally win in the wild card round. Never in the divisional round, never sniffed the NFC Championship. So that is definitely the bar. Everybody knows that. Mike McCarthy at the top of the list of people who know that's the expectation.
Okay, so if they win a playoff game, and even if they lose in round 2, he stays?
Yeah, probably, because Jerry is loath to admit a mistake, and he's won 12 games each of the last 2 years, and did nothing in the playoffs. So if that happens again, then I think your Belichick theory will come into play.
Okay, all right.
The thing is, though, and this is bad news for the Commanders. The Cowboys are doing everything this year, building up these incredible stats against the worst teams, with the exception of the Cardinals. They somehow got beat by a bad Cardinal team early in the year. Against the better teams, like Philadelphia, they find a way to lose in Philadelphia. Yeah. So the Commanders may lose by 40 this week.
Well,
that will prove about the Cowboys, no idea.
Well,
no idea.
The only thing about that on our end is if they lose by 40, is that enough to get Ron Rivera out the door before the end of the season? I think that's the only real drama left for us here. But I'm looking at the schedule, and I remember when I was in Dallas, they always used to talk about, great advantage for the Cowboys because there's no bye weeks in those days. So they play the Thanksgiving game at home, and then they get 10 days off for the run. Well, it's a little different this year. They have to play a Thursday game right after this one. That's against Seattle. They still have Philadelphia, Buffalo, Miami, and Detroit to play. So I think they'll get a wild card spot, but they're sitting at the top wild card spot right now. It's not going to be an easy putt to get there. I mean, they're going to have to win some of these tough games, it looks like.
Yeah, they will, and they haven't been doing that. Yeah. That's got to change. The main thing that has followed this franchise for about 28 years is if there is a key point in a playoff game, the Cowboys are always the victims. Mm-hmm. Whether it was Tony Romo throwing killer interceptions or Dak's rookie year leads a great drive, gets them ahead at the tail end, final minute of the Green Bay game. They leave enough time for Aaron Rodgers to beat them. Yeah. So that's the history. That's what has got to be overturned this year, and it will be really interesting to see how they handle this schedule with actual good teams. They can't be beating up on the Giants anymore, and after Thursday on the Commanders anymore.
Yeah.
And that's a real open question because all the numbers are not coming against the Eagles. They're coming against the Giants. So that is going to have to change for this scenario to play out to get at least 2 wins in any given playoff, because that has not again happened in 28 years.
Wow. We're talking to Dave Barnett from Dallas about the Cowboys hosting the Commanders on Thursday. They're 11-point favorites. And, Dak Prescott, it's been a big blow to ESPN's programming since he signed his contract extension. They really don't have anything to talk about. But, as they look at it, and I'm hearing now that they're looking for another extension. I mean, has he cemented himself enough that he is the really, really long-term quarterback, or you think they're going to be shopping again?
I can't believe they would give him even more money because now the people who are going to be coming up are the Micah Parsons, people like that. CeeDee Lamb is going to get another big contract. So I think Dak has his money. No, I don't think if it comes down to it, unless he somehow leads a Super Bowl championship. Even then, there are other people behind him who are in line to get paid, and Dak has already gotten paid.
Yeah. I mean, they realize he's good. He's not Aikman. Right? No. It's like Romo. Romo was good, not Aikman.
At this point, that is the best comp. Yeah, it's Dak and Tony. Dak has every intangible you would ever want in an athlete. Tremendous person, tremendous leadership. Has to win at least 2 playoff games in an off season to be any different than Tony Romo.
Yeah. The other thing about the Cowboys that I've noticed reading things online that people in Dallas have pointed out that all the other teams have won championships since the Cowboys won their last one in the 95 season. Has that ratcheted anything up? Has caused any reaction from, as they say, Valley Ranch?
No, because what's happened in the 28 years since is Jerry has become a multi-billionaire.
Oh, yeah.
So to him, his way of operating things is working incredibly well. It puts to rest this notion that he constantly trots out every year that nobody wants to win more than he does. That's why he should be running the team. Well, we have 28 years of history showing that theory is flawed. So I don't know what will really change Jerry's mind about anything. If they do finally win, he's going to pat himself on the back for his great GM work and for being smart enough to hire Mike McCarthy.
Yeah, exactly.
Everything pales in comparison to the way he has monetized this franchise and shown the rest of the owners how to monetize their own franchise.
Exactly.
And that is the stamp he's left on the NFL. The competitive stamp is he personally ended the Cowboys dynasty.
Yeah, he ended the Cowboys dynasty, but he allowed maybe the worst owner in the history of the league to exit here with a $6 billion payday. So, there's many ways to look at that. Absolutely. Let me hit you with this before I let you go. Your many years of doing both local and national play-by-play. I'm sure you've worked with many, many sideline reporters. What was your reaction to what Carissa Thompson spilled out last week on her Barstool podcast?
I couldn't believe she would say that publicly, even if she had ever done it.
Mm-hmm.
I was shocked that Erin Andrews chimed in with her own, yeah, I've done that too. The sideline reporters I've worked with were some of the best journalists I've ever known. Michelle Tafoya, Holly Rowe, there's a long list, and not one of them would have ever pulled that. What they would have done is, if they couldn't get a coach, either going into the locker room at halftime or coming out, they would have said that, and that would have been the report. So-and-so is too upset. He, had agreed to talk with us beforehand, but he didn't. That's the report.
Yeah,
that is a better window on what's happening in the game than something made up based on something he may have not said to her before the game. So I was astonished that she would say it. I was astonished that she is apparently surprised that there's any pushback. I don't know how Fox can keep putting her on the air. I mean, she has torpedoed her own credibility. Fox News could use her. That's like a job description for Fox News. But
right.
Fox Sports has been different than that until now.
I agree 100%. I don't understand how she's still got a job there and how all the other reporters haven't revolted against her. And I've also read, and you have a much better understanding of this than I do, but they see things down on the sidelines and they'll tell the truck, hey, so-and-so is limping on the sidelines, get a shot of him. And don't you in the booth get word from the producer that, this is what they're concentrating on and this is what the sideline reporter has discovered? Doesn't that happen during a broadcast?
Absolutely. That's the main purpose to have a sideline reporter, is to have the extra pair of eyes down there, which people down there see things that we can't see from the booth. So it's injury status. It's also, just trends of the game. How are they handling the fact they've given up 21 unanswered points or whatever it is? So that requires a top-notch journalist who knows what he or she is seeing and knows how to put it into words in 15 seconds.
Yeah.
And what it comes down to is that has to be believable. If anything comes up that is incorrect from the sideline, that's it. That person has spent his or her credibility. And Carissa Thompson did that. She's still on the air.
Yeah, and the fact that she doesn't have to go down there anymore. I've left that behind me, and now I'm in the studio. And that silly little job where I would just make up cliches that coaches would say. Well, here's Lisa Salters, who was an ABC News reporter, had to deal with a life and death situation last year with DeMar Hamlin. I mean, come on, that's just she not only ruined her own credibility. She put in question the people whose credibility should not be questioned. It's crazy.
Well, exactly. And the fact that is so often a female position, and it's so hard for females to gain credibility in football, probably more than any other sport, for her to not realize the effect that admission would have. Again, just incredibly entitled, tone-deaf thinking there.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, happy Thanksgiving. It's, I guess, a 3:30 start for you, so you may get the whole stinking game in on on Thursday before dinner. I think we'll be eating early this year based on what we're likely to see. But thanks for the insight, and happy Thanksgiving to all of you.
Happy Thanksgiving to you. Always great catching up, Eddie.
All right, thanks, Dave. That's Dave Barnett from Dallas. So there's the picture, and he says that kind of surprises me, that he believes that the Cowboys only have to win one playoff game in order for Mike McCarthy to keep his job. And he did not totally dismiss my idea about Bill Parcells, not Bill Parcells, why do I confuse them? Bill Belichick and Jerry having a deal that would include Jimmy going into the Ring of Honor.